Alas, poor Yorick, it's clobberin' time. Benjamin Ulmer. The Daily Grind, Chapter 199. A thumbtack entered a pinboard, bringing with it the sheet of paper that had just been moved. A moment later, a loop of green yarn around the tack was pulled taut as it was once again connected to another point on the board. Like this! Sarah's voice cut through the hum of a powerful air-conditioning unit and the rustle of a half-dozen people working on their own stuff in the back room of the Order's home base. See? It makes perfect sense! She shot a beaming grin of self-satisfaction to the woman she was working with. Karen, almost 3 decades her elder, and certainly 2 decades grumpier on the average day of work here, folded her arms and frowned. "This does not make sense at all," she told Sarah, tilting her head slightly to look at the broader picture of the board. "It leaves this team without a dedicated defender." She tapped a separate confluence of pages with a single precise jot of a red painted fingernail. "It's better this way, though," Sarah insisted. "Explain to me why," Karen asked. Her time with the Order had changed Karen quite a lot. While it had failed to ease the blunt way she approached conversations, and had probably only made her workaholic nature worse, it had given her an appreciation for the way some of the people she now worked with were almost hyper-competent in their very specialized fields. And she absolutely was not the kind of fool to pass up the chance to learn from the best. Sarah nodded at the question and pointed to the page that she had moved. It was a printout of a simple Order dossier on one of their members. A picture, some personal info, a quick overview of abilities and specializations. This one was for a guy named Matt, who had joined as part of the response program a while back, and had moved to Delving after he hadn't fit in there. "Okay, so," Sarah started. Then she took a deep, deep breath. "Putting Matt on Team 6 means he'll be in Route Horizon mostly, but he won't like that. He'll get a bad case of co-pilot syndrome really fast. He's that kind of person. Also, the whole point of this is to put him with people who will be challenging his worldview in a way that will be constructive for him. But Team 6 has 2 of the Horizonists in it, and Matt is very Lutheran in a way that makes that a terrible idea, so we put him here." Sarah tapped the other cluster she had been trying to put together. "Reform a team around Simon, because Simon needs to not be alone, no matter what he keeps saying in his stupid, self-depreciating, vaguely necromantic way about having plenty of company from a ghost. Post them in Officium Mundi. Probably use them as the first long-term outpost team. Because Simon and Matt are both the kind of people who thrive when you give them light instructions in high-stakes situations. Also, Matt actually enjoys fighting, so putting him in Officium Mundi works, even if we do make friends with things half the time. To them, we add one of the potions who are interested in seeing what we do. So they all push each other's boundaries, but only a little bit so it doesn't break anyone. And then Magneto, who needs more walks anyway." She didn't have a printout for the Mongoose, the dog-shaped creature made out of a magnetic field, so Sarah just wrote it in pen under Simon's name. "He loves Simon anyway. It'll be perfect. And there'll be a good reaction team to build that trust on in case we ever need someone for a quick response to the Akashic Sewer breaching or any other dungeon murder wave. Oh, and then Team 6. To them, we move Momo." Another pin in the board. "And then don't tell her until later, because she'll love the place and it'll get her some sun. Finally. And they don't need a guardian because they'll mostly be doing car stuff. Besides, we can just give them orbs or .mems or something to give them a grounded understanding of evasion and survival tactics. Kirk and Amy already have a relation stick connection. I bet Momo could form one with at least one of them. We can put Sunrise and Clouds on there too, because camera condos would do great when it's a shared vehicle balancing out motion, and Momo's relation sticks to him anyway already, and mixed species team are a good habit for the Order to get into early so no one questions it later. And then, if we can get them to the attic book, they can do the Avatar thing in an emergency. Plus, Amy is curious about the other species, and since she's actually only part-time with us and kind of a reformed cultist, I kind of want to lure her in more." Sarah took another deep breath and smiled at Karen, tilting her head up slightly to look at her fellow planning committee member. "See?" Karen stared at the simple sheets of paper pinned to their board and the new web that Sarah had woven. Then she clamped her eyes shut and opened them slowly, wondering if the words would have changed during her long blink. But no, it was all still the same. The vast majority of the words you just said have nothing to do with what is written on the dossiers we are using, Karen said, slowly and deliberately. Um, Sarah looked back at their planning board. Yes, she nodded once. You're right. Wow. Huh, we should flesh these out a bit. With everyone's deeper personal emotions, so that anyone could reference your inner desires or shames as is convenient for team planning? Karen asked pointedly. And also your long-term intentions for developing adversary-tested trust? Sarah held up a finger and opened her mouth before pursing her lips and tapping that finger against the closed mouth. She muttered. Okay, okay. I see why. That might not be great, the girl admitted. But isn't that what we're doing now? I mean, we're trying to organize the best teams we can, right? I wonder, Karen said, if perhaps we have different concepts of what best might mean. I mean, I'm trying to get everyone to do their best, Sarah said. What are you going for? Karen clicked the pen in her hand a few times idly, her one concession to a fidgeting motion. I was more interested in building teams that will be effective in the short term, she said. Though I see the value of what you're doing, don't misunderstand me, but both Team 6 and your hypothetical Team 9 would need weeks or months to fully grow into working together well, whereas the setup I suggested would be competent immediately. Are we in a rush? Sarah asked, raising her eyebrows. We've got more magic than we know what to do with. Everyone's always so busy. I can't even find time to schedule everyone for avatar practice. Yes, actually, let's back up to that. That is the second time you have said that word. Karen frowned suspiciously. Is this going to be something else that will get in the way of streamlining how we operate? With an energetic series of nods that sent her ponytail splaying around her face, Sarah smiled back. Oh, absolutely yes, she said. So, the Clutter Ascent book, the one that's full of stars, have you heard about that? My daughter told me something about it in passing. It makes the links stronger? Karen prompted. Sarah shrugged. No, it makes them longer. It lets you bridge different people that you're connected to, and move anything that's part of the network? I guess it's a network, yeah. We need better words for this. This is really more James's department than mine. But it also lets you use whatever transmission requirement is easiest, so as long as someone has just nearby enough, she made quote marks in the air with her hands, then you can send a lot of different perks to a single person really quickly. At the cost of the others. Yes, it's a zero-sum transfer, Sarah agreed happily. And people can take back stuff without warning, so it needs trust and coordination, which needs practice. She waved her arms around wildly. Karen almost laughed, but opted instead for a brief huff of air through her nose. Yes, all of this I am aware, she said. Would you like Planner or myself to help with scheduling your practice? She offered politely. Well, Sarah looked away sheepishly. I may have a few dozen people to schedule, she said, holding her hands behind her back. So yes, please? She grinned a pearly smile at Karen, eyes dancing with barely hidden amusement. With a deep sigh, Karen pulled out her phone and entered a note into her to-do list. She would get to work on this later, but she had promised to help already. Regret was for people who didn't actually mean the things they said. Well, she said, turning back to the board, we have 8 people left to assign. I would put Alex on Team 1, but I look forward to learning why I am wrong. She held out the newest page to Sarah. The younger woman's face lit up as the wheels in her brain began to turn again. Here. Nate tossed a USB stick onto the condemned ruin that currently passed for JP's desk. Brought you a new toy, fresh from somewhere with less thunderstorms going on. I believe there's a special name for it when there's no rain, JP answered without looking up right away. When he did, he moved with a kind of casual air that made it hard to remember he was running the ongoing cleanup effort of a city that had undergone a mass casualty event within the last year. a casual air, and a flick of hair that was somehow still elegantly disheveled in what almost felt like a calculated way. "And what's this?" he asked. "Memory file," Nate answered, turning his bald head slightly and tapping the fairly recent skulljack port on the back of his neck. "Homebrewed, authentic ability, all yours, and whoever else you think you should give it to." "What for?" JP raised his eyebrows as he picked up the USB stick. "Wait, you made this?" "Yup," Nate said simply. "And it's mostly marksmanship drills, every bit I could dredge up." He sped up speaking as JP plugged the USB into his laptop and started looking for a connector cable to his own brain-computer interface. "Momo, who I vaguely trust on this, ordered me to tell you that it is safe enough, but that you should only run it with an infomorph on standby." JP froze with a short length of Ethernet cable in his hand. "Why?" he asked in a suspicious drawl. "Something about residual emotional contamination that I wasn't paying attention to. We're calling this an early attempt until I can make a better one. Turns out James's magical no-miss juice doesn't work on these things, and I'm a better shot than all of you, so only use it in emergencies, I guess. Anyway, how's the week been here?" "James is influencing you too much," JP sighed, narrowing his eyes at the larger man. "You're supposed to be the professional. Also, it's going all right. We're actually off the Eastern power grid now, which took a lot of favors and bribes to make happen, but it'll cut down on the fires. I'm not looking forward to the heat wave, though. Without an actual fire department and with no one here being a sea witch yet, we're basically just waiting for something important to burn." "That's not what a sea witch is." "Sure, but I'm not kidding. It's a disaster waiting to happen. If it weren't for the Necrodes literally attacking the small fires, we'd already be out of here." JP shrugged. "Also, there isn't much for us here. I know a lot of people are into the idea of owning a city, but holy shit, Nate, we do not have the person power for this." "I can get some more people," Nate offered. "James more or less okayed us to recruit. I can find people." "What people?" JP narrowed his eyes. "I'm mostly thinking of intercepting army recruiters in rural towns." Nate crossed his arms. "Gotta ask, what are you still doing here anyway?" "Me or our task force?" "Second one." JP shoved a stack of folders on his desk aside, revealing a clipboard with a few big line items written on it in thick black marker. "Securing the dungeon entrance is a big one. Observing the Necrodes is another. Some kind of xenobiology thing. We actually have a few people with zoologist qualifications that are interested in how they're changing. I'm kind of wondering if they're people now." "Complicates shit," Nate snorted. "That's our lives," JP agreed. "Also, this is good training for the rogues. Actual hands-on practice with breaching security on places that still have intact security and are real. It's pretty nice, but that's sort of secondary. Oh, though we were also getting personal effects from the displaced population that survived, but that's mostly wrapped up now, and obviously cleaning out anything valuable. Banks, anywhere with useful tools, other high-value targets. We have a giant bag full of gemstones if you want it. It's kind of incidental." "Could come in handy, but the order's set for cash right now," Nate reminded him. JP laughed. "Yeah, and how weird is that?" Nate shrugged, not really engaged that much with the comment. "Well, we did co-opt a bunch of millionaires," he said. JP raised his eyebrows further. "Yeah," he repeated. "And how weird is that?" "Point. Dungeon's important, though, so we should at least keep an outpost here." "Also, we're a great dumping ground for misfits," JP grinned, reaching out a hand holding up an empty beer bottle like a torch. "Bring me your cultists, your rat roaches, your giant invisible cats." He intoned the words with the cadence of old poetry. Nate looked around the cluttered back office that used to be a hotel manager's room, and was now in use by JP as his desk and random assorted problem storage. "That fucking cat, is it still around here?" "Yes? Not in the room," JP said. "Why?" "It hates me," Nate answered quickly. "Feelings mutual. The cat's a dick." JP stared at him with narrowed eyes. He held up one finger to his lips before waving it at Nate. "I feel like this, right here. This is why your mem files are going to be a problem. Wait, hang on. Momo asked me not to make mem files. Is this why she said it? Emotional residue? I'm not the misfit, right? Nate, you tell me if I was the misfit," JP demanded suddenly. Absolutely not, Nate told him flatly, turning to leave but pausing at the door. You do better work when you don't know. Also, I'm borrowing Miles back to the lair. I got a couple new rogues, and I want to get an actual protocol set up for sharing intel. Also get in the habit of doing recon sweeps with cities. Maybe actually be proactive about crossing paths with more weirdness for once. Yeah, sure, JP waved him off. Get out and leave me to my work before I have Amy sick the cat on you. Can't do it yourself? Nate cocked an eyebrow. The cat hates me, JP replied without any emotion whatsoever. James stood in the lobby of the lair, presiding over a growing pile of equipment and being part of the problem when it came to his group getting in everyone's way. Despite the fact that he should be good at this by now, that he had been on a number of delves, that he had actually lost count of the number of delves, the process of gathering beforehand and making sure you had everything you needed was still something that he found terrifying. The first handful of adventures into a dungeon had been done with almost no prep. He had jammed what his brain thought of as adventuring stuff in a bag and just kind of gone, and then ended up in real trouble more than once because of it. As it turned out, you basically never actually needed rope in Officium Mundi, or in any other dungeon he had found so far. Maybe the climb. Now the Order had carefully balanced weight charts, custom-fitted light body armor, an armory both mundane and arcane, and an actual print-off of a checklist for what you should make sure you had before stepping through any thresholds. And yet still, James felt like he was frantically cramming shirts into a backpack the night before a road trip to an anime convention. Not that he had ever done that, of course. He had done his shirt cramming at least 2 days in advance, which was plenty of time to make it even worse when it turned out he had forgotten something simple. Coffee! Alana announced with aplomb, slamming a cardboard box onto the floor next to James. The thermoses packed in like artillery shells rattling against each other as she did so. The good stuff, she added for clarity. The good stuff for being smart, or the good stuff for being quick? James asked. Quick, obviously. Alana snapped back to her full height like a snake uncoiling, landing a tiny kiss on James's cheek as she went. It's way more useful. You need to shave, Jesus. More useful for dungeon things. James rubbed at his cheek. It's not that bad, is it? Okay, fine. He paused. Shit, am I going to look like a scruffy wizard drifter when we make contact with our new dungeon friend? I should have thought about this. Relax, please, Thought of Quiet told James, the Camerconda speaking through his skulljack as he gently settled a manipulator setup onto the floor next to Alana's coffee box. The Camerconda was one of the last ones to name themselves, and had, until recently, simply been referred to by the title of leader or elder among the group of non-humans that the Order had rescued. James liked him. He was almost relentlessly calm, but his blue and gray corded coils held a razor wit that came out of nowhere when he did decide to make jokes. Possibly because he spent a lot of his time hanging out with James in James's office. He was also one of their teammates for this endeavor. Yeah, besides, Scruffy Wizard is your aesthetic, Anesh told James as he returned from whatever he'd been doing. Oh, you can't show up looking different for your first meeting. That would be like lying. Thought of Quiet nodded in a bobbing motion. Yes, your appearance is deceptive, he added. All right, James paused and looked down at the Camerconda friend with a squint. Hang on, is? The camera hummed before slithering off silently to accomplish some unknown goal, leaving James feeling like he'd just been drive-by roasted. Okay, putting that aside, what are we still waiting on? James asked, looking down at his clipboard for the millionth time. We've got the armor, we've got backup food, we've got tools. Do we have the suspiciously vague line item of minor magic items? He asked, looking up and then sliding to the side as he realized that someone was trying to wheel a cart of lumber through the front lobby into the elevator. Sorry, he called after their retreating form as the elevator dinged and took them away. God, why am I so nervous about all of this? He muttered to himself. Newly arriving from the basement, Momo overheard just enough of his words to answer. "'Cause you worry constantly?" she asked him. "Also, I'm ready to go." James glanced over and looked her up and down, sharing a suspicious look with Alana. "No, you're not?" he said, plaintively. You're wearing a bathrobe, Alana told her in an exasperated voice. So unless that's enchanted, then... She trailed off, and then sharply sucked in a breath at exactly the same time that James did next to her. Enchanted bathrobes! They both exclaimed at the same time, before James dropped his clipboard and they high-fived vigorously. Yes! No, I'm wearing shorts. I can take the bathrobe off. Momo rolled her eyes at him. Also, I'm fucking loaded with totems, so there's that too. You two are dorks. Thank you, James said. Okay, so us three, he motioned to his partners before pointing at Momo. You, Thought of Quiet, where's our medic? Nick? Momo asked, perking up a little bit. No, not Nick, James said. Wow, you fucking lit up there. Is something going on with you two? Momo sputtered and waved her hands in a flail that could be described generously as dismissive, if it weren't for how utterly unconvincing it was. No, she said. He just has the same viewpoint on magic I do, and it's neat, and we get along. Yes, that's why he's not coming along, actually, Anesh said slowly. You both recklessly disregard personal safety when it comes to magic, and we don't need that twice on a new delve. Alana leaned forward onto Momo's shoulder, smothering the much shorter girl's head with her arm. We really shouldn't even be letting you come either, Miss Brain Damage is fine in small doses, but James says you promised to be good, and Alex is still out with a broken arm, so you're who we get. What, you literally couldn't find anyone else? Momo pouted, actually kind of hurt. I mean, you're high up our list of people we trust on delves, James said, casually easing over that hurt without really realizing. But seriously, please don't give yourself brain damage. I know you're still doing totem experiments, and we can't make you stop or anything, and they are useful, but a lot of people care about you, and it would be nice if you could not kill yourself just to prove you're important. Momo seemed to shrink down under Alana's half-hug. Pfft, she uttered, not sure how to respond to the frank vulnerability James put on display so easily. Pfft, she added. Sure, James said. Anyway, medic? Me! A young woman's digital voice rang out as frequency of sunlight slithered into the lobby, a bright green scarf covering the more muted colors of the cords of her neck, followed by Thought of Quiet, who added another manipulator pack to the first one. Me, I'm the medic. We're the medic, Deb said, coming up behind her girlfriend, rolling her shoulder as she joined them. Technically, she was their head doctor, but that was a title that she had been eager to pass on to anyone else as soon as she found a way to make a mem file for the majority of her actual college education, and half the orbs she had picked up since then. She still worked in their medical wing and was a big part of a lot of their more biologically oriented projects, but Deb had never wanted the responsibility of running an entire makeshift hospital, so she was trying to let that go to someone more suited, while she spent more time with her partner. And, as she had decided not to limit Frequency of Sunlight's desire for adventure, if Deb wanted her girlfriend to be safe, she'd have to tag along and make sure nothing bad happened. I am also a we that is a medic, the Camerconda protested. I have a helper now. She can do the thing. Sonny, we're not arguing. Oh my god. Deb threw her hands up. There isn't a problem. I'm also just here to help. Anesh leaned closer to James. This is a little adorable, isn't it? He muttered. I like how their arguments have become kind of cute and way less stressful, James replied. Also, neither of them has a medkit, so I'm not checking that off the list. Ah, Karen put it on the table an hour ago when you weren't looking. You're fine, Anesh stage whispered back. James blinked and looked down at the growing collection of stuff. Wait, seriously? I thought... Damn it, he sighed. I am so fucking bad at this, he exclaimed, and this is supposed to be my job. Ah, you're fine, Sarah said as she joined them, hopping up onto the building's front counter to use it as a bench. Everyone here, I've got your little report before you all go off to your first day of dungeon school. First off, dungeon school sucks. Hopefully this will be a better dungeon. James started ticking off points on his fingers. Second off, why aren't you coming with us? This seems like the perfect place for you. Third, we're waiting on one person. Fourth... Fourth? Alana prompted. I forgot. Sarah, what's fourth? Well, we're waiting for someone, apparently. I'll tell you then, Sarah said, giving him a massive grin. Also, quiet. Hi. Thermocles says hi. She wants to hang out when you get back. Momo finally pulled herself out from under Alana's perch. I can't believe she kept that name. She gave a small laugh. Why? People name themselves all the time around here, James said, waving a hand across the two Camerondas in attendance. You could rename yourself too. We'd support it, he told her. Nah, someone already got Thermocles. What could I ever come up with that's cooler than that? Momo looked around, the half of her haircut that wasn't shaved flat wishing around her head. So who are we waiting for, anyway? James held up a hand and started counting down on it. Everyone who was having side conversations or rustling around in the gear pile mostly went quiet, watching as he ticked from 5 to 0, and then nothing happened. Huh, okay, my timing's off, but give it a sec. From the hallway behind them, awkwardly following behind a very tired group of one of the Order's youth groups that an even more tired-looking Elle was goading forward while she shot pleading looks in James's direction that he promptly ignored. A tall, roughly humanoid figure wearing an entirely unseasonable baggy black sweatshirt approached their group. I would like to come as well, Arush said, the rat roach's voice still somewhat raspy and warped from a throat and mouth that weren't properly shaped for speech, but dramatically more steady and deep from the improvements that had been made to his lungs. The difference that a single purple orb from Officia Mundi could make was often impressive to a human, but when they were applied to rat roaches, the magic seemed capable of annihilating several of the built-in flaws that the species had with an almost scornful wave of the hand. James lowered his hand. All right, now we're all here. Sarah. Whoa, wait, hang on. Momo held up her hands in a time-out gesture. How the hell did you do that? I'm very powerful, James answered. So, Sarah. Deb cleared her throat and raised a hand, interrupting. I'm actually also kind of concerned. I know this is an ongoing philosophical debate with the Camerondas about the nature of power, but it feels a lot worse to be bringing a species designed to feel pain on an operation that might include combat. Are we sure he's not here because he feels pressured into it? She thought about that for a second and then added, That sounds really bad, but I'm still worried. Oh my god, Arush, why are you here? James asked directly, turning to the mountain of fur and chitin that was trying not to look like he was looming near them. The rat roach pulled his hood down, fixing James with a stare from his mismatched, faceted eyes as his crooked antenna bobbed free. I enjoy adventure, he said calmly. See? James said, waving a hand toward Arush. He's perfectly capable of having a sense of humor and lying to all of us and possibly himself. That's basically the only requirement to be a self-actualized person. Momo crossed her arms into the sleeves of her bathrobe. I still want to know how you knew he'd be here now. James saw him lingering in the basement, working up the courage to ask us, and then heard the elevator ding a second ago, Alana answered, ruining her boyfriend's mystique. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, she said to James, absolutely not sounding sorry. But seriously, Arush, man, you actually want to be in on this? We might die. We might not, the rat roach answered quietly. And I don't understand myself, but I feel like I should help, and I want to. We should talk after this, Frequency of Sunlight spoke up. I get what you mean. The other Cameronda next to James nodded at the rat roach with a sympathetic wide lens on his boxy security camera face. Okay, Sarah announced. Everyone is here now. Existential dread is over. I have something to say, and you're going to listen, because I have stuff to do today, and while this is an adorable bonding moment, I actually really have to go in a sec, so everyone hush. With a series of smiles and one solemn nod from Arush, who didn't fully understand Sarah's personality yet, they hushed. All right, she rubbed her hands together. Here's what we know. The library is at the Kilgore Memorial Library in Dumas, Texas, north part of the state. So, legally Texas. What is a Texas? Arush asked as Sarah paused. It's a state, James answered. We talked about states in the U.S. a couple of weeks ago, remember? It's one of them. Local government, local culture, that kind of thing. Is it a good state or a bad state? Frequency of Sunlight asked. That's kind of a complicated question for the scope of this briefing, James said with a shrug, apologizing to Sarah with his eyes. I mean, there's a lot of factors for something like that. Economics, social situations, hell, within states you can actually have wildly different attitudes, even between, like, cities and rural areas, and also, bad, Momo interjected. It's a bad state. The Camerconda tilted her head at the other girl. Thank you, she said appreciatively. The library is in Dumas, Texas, Sarah repeated in a tone that was the most exasperated that she ever really got. But really, she had been expecting it with this group of dorks. Now, the library is a single-story building on every map and photo online, so it's kinda weird the guy who called us said the dungeon was in the stairwell. Also, Charlie and his group confirmed the building is bigger than it should be, so be on the lookout for that. Planner will be providing mental screening as you approach. She sighed. We don't know much about the dungeon itself. It opens up Wednesday mornings, 3 a.m., which is familiar. It drops yellow orbs that give ranks, we think. The kid who found it was pretty shaken up, so information is unreliable. The only creature he encountered was a book that was instantly hostile. Sorry, a book, Anesh said. Like paper, pages, ink, just a book? Full of teeth, Sarah confirmed. Watch out for the tongues. Scouts didn't go in too far or fight anything, but we can confirm it's a lot of stacks and that telepads work to get out. We don't know if there's time shenanigans going on, but even if there isn't, you can bail whenever you need to. She looked at all of them. The guy's name is Vad, short for Vatic. He tentatively agreed to come with you. He'll meet you on site. Time difference means you'll have about 2.5 hours. If you leave... She looked at her phone. Now. And that's all we know, and I have to go. Have fun storming the library. Sarah hopped off the counter, landing in a crouch, and took the opportunity to share a hug and a "be careful" with Deb before she ducked away and headed for the stairs. Okay, James said. Everyone feel good about this? Anything we forgot? He asked as he picked up the laden backpack with his portion of gear and slung it over his shoulder. Everyone indicated that they were as ready as they were going to be, including a surprised Arush when he was handed his own pre-stocked backpack weighted for his own carrying capacity. It is time to get to work, Frequency of Sunlight intoned like a ritual. And in a way it was. The scarf that she was wearing, shifting and rippling as it moved under its own power, an authority that she was bonded to, turned a slight ghostly green as it responded to her call. And time to take a trip, James said, in almost the same ritualistic cadence, and he felt a sensation like a sunny breeze touch him as the navigator that he shared his headspace with also began to manifest, a soft orange touch to the light around him as an ethereal feathered limb uncoiled from around his own arm. A voice whispered in his mind that until recently he normally only heard in dreams. Are we going now? It asked. Oh yeah, James grinned, reaching out to join hands with everyone in a circle as Anesh double and triple checked the address written on their brand new, fully stocked, recently copied telepad. We're taking the easy way, though. Sad, the navigator chastised him. But we will see a new place, and we will explore, and I will help. And we'll have an adventure, James told it with a smile. Now hold on tight. The feathers clung tight to him at his urging as Anesh looked around at everyone, made sure they were all ready, and with one last check to make sure he wasn't about to banish them to the middle of the Pacific Ocean or something, ripped the page out of the telepad with his teeth. Their team vanished in a snap of air, and an instant later arrived in a library that was a bit too big, ready for almost anything.